Perfect. We're live on YouTube. Right. I'm going to chat a little bit of shit, give it a few minutes, let some people jump on before we get into this. Cool. We've got a few people jumping on now. Guys jumping on, if you can hear me and you can see me okay, just stick me an emoji in the comments. Any emoji, don't really give a shit what it is. Whatever your favorite emoji is, stick it in the comments just to let me know, excuse me, that you can hear me and you can see me okay. Thank you kindly. When we get an emoji, we will begin. Cool. Going to be a lot of value in this live and in this podcast episode as well, because every time I do go live, I am recording a podcast for our show. Cool. Right. We've got a couple of people on Facebook. We've got a few on Instagram. Cool. I'm thinking that someone on Instagram, just leave me an emoji in the comments. Let me know that you can hear me and you can see me. And then we will get going. Cool. Okay, right. Shall we hit record and we will get into it? 3, 2, 1. Yes, team, welcome back to another episode of the Type 1 Movement Podcast. It's been a good fucking few weeks since I've done an episode. So I thought I'm going to make a little comeback. And in this episode, I want to go over the 6 things I would personally do if I wanted to improve my blood glucose levels and my diabetes management, and if I was starting from scratch. Bit of a side note, all these 6 things, like grab a pen and paper, because I'm going to try and deliver as much fucking value as possible in this episode. So please make sure you take notes, come back and listen to it over and over again, because I can guarantee the points that I share with you are 100%, if you fucking apply them, going to help you improve your blood glucose control. Before we get into it, please do leave me a rating and a review on the podcast app, if you're listening on Apple, iTunes, on Spotify. Also, give it a screenshot and share it on your Instagram stories and on Facebook, and give me a tag so I can reach out and say thank you. So I thought, I've not done an episode for a while. I want to kind of deliver some really good value to you guys. And I'm basically, all these 6 points that I'm going to share with you are 6 points that I actually did and still do some of them that allow me to have great control. There are also some of the points that we are teaching our like one-to-one clients within our program. So we know that these points are tried and tested and they work as well. The only way they're not going to work is if you don't fucking apply them. Yeah. So I'm going to get straight into this with point number 1. And I actually did this somewhat 16 years ago when I was first diagnosed, because I just throw myself in at the deep end and try to learn as much as I possibly could about the condition. So point number 1 is I did, but I would educate myself on how my insulin works. Now, side note, these points aren't just if you're newly diagnosed. Like if you're not having a good time with your blood sugar levels, you're a bit confused and overwhelmed, these points are still going to help you. Whether you've had it a few weeks or fucking years, these points guaranteed will help you. So point number 1 is what I would do is I'd educate myself on how my insulin works that I'm taking. Now, I did this when I was first diagnosed. I was on Lantus and I was also on Nova Rapid. So I did so much research. You can find a lot of this on NHS websites and things like that. You know, what the peaks, like onset time is, how long it takes to work, how long it stays in your system, all that sort of stuff. So we need to understand this specific, because all different insulins work slightly differently. So I wouldn't go researching them all unless you'd fucking want to know it all like I did. But I would definitely research and Google about your insulin that you're taking. Its profile, how long does it take to work? How long does it stay in your system? What's the onset time? What's the peak time? Go and learn that, because that's going to help you out so much if you've got a good understanding on how insulin actually works. A little bit of a side note to this, what I would also do that I heavily did is I would actually do some research on what type 1 diabetes is. Now, this may sound like I'm being a fucking bellend saying this to other type 1 diabetics, but trust me, I speak to hundreds of type 1 diabetics every day, and they don't actually fully understand what the condition is and what's going on within their body. If you can wrap your head around that, it'll really help you understand how to manage it. So the first thing is, first point, educate myself on how insulin works and what type 1 diabetes actually is, what's going on within our bodies. Yeah. The second point is what I would do and what I still do, and we do with all of our clients is I'd look at my current control, my current numbers, and I'll tell you what specifically and where we aim for it to be, because I would then set some targets of where I ultimately want them to be. The reason for that is this: it gives us something to work towards. If you just say, I want to improve my blood glucose control, and you're not setting a specific target, it's like pissing in the wind. I want to improve it. What does fucking improve it mean? Like, you need to know where you're starting and where you want those numbers to be. So I'm going to give you some examples here. So what I would look at is I'd look at my current 30-day average blood glucose. You can find this on your Dexcom, your Libra app. You can find it on Medtronic. You can find it within your pump if you're using a pump. You can find it on your finger prick device. Most of them will tell you 30-day average. You can also look at 7 and 14 if you want, but 30 days gives us a good scope of what your average is and what's going on more than a week, right? I'd also then look at my time and target range over 30 days. And I would set some targets from where I'm at. You could set ultimate targets where you eventually want to end up, and then you can break them down into smaller sort of bite-sized chunks, if you like. These are the targets that I aim for personally and that we get all of our clients to aim for, and I'll tell you in a second. So we always like to aim for a HbA1c of 6.5%. We can pretty much guarantee that within our program that we can get clients to that because we've got over 500 or 600 type 1s to that. Yeah. Using these steps that I'm fucking sharing with you. So HbA1c, I will get it to around 6.5%. There's a few reasons for that. Firstly, is it'll massively reduce the risk of any long-term health complications that we can face. We know higher HbA1c, poor control, we're more at risk, all of us, of health complications. So if we can get that down to around 6.5%, it's pre-diabetes, that's fucking awesome. It's great. In terms of averages, we will be looking at a 30-day average of around 6 to 7 moles or 108 to 126 milligram per deciliter. This is where we get all of our clients to. These are the targets that we set. We then break them down depending on where they're starting. Because let's say someone was coming into our program, or yourself if you're listening to this, you've got an A1C of, let's say, 12, 13, 14%. You're all right, your ultimate goal is going to be 6.5%, but it's quite a bit of a way off. So I would break that down into smaller chunks. The same with your average. If your average is at like between like 10 to 15 or something like that, it's quite high. Break it down into smaller chunks so it doesn't seem like that much of a leap. As for timing target range, we set that flat across the board. 70% or above timing range, you're doing a fucking great job. We've got a lot of clients who might get 80 or 90%. That's great. We never set goals like that, but 70% shows us that we're keeping decent control. We're staying in range. We're not getting too many big fucking spikes or too many hypos. So 70% or above is great. So that's point number 2. I'd look at my current targets, my current numbers, and I'd set some goals. My average, my HbA1c, my average blood glucose, and my time and target range. Yeah. Then we get into the nitty-gritty of how we're going to actually move that forward. So point number 3 is I'd test my basal rate. Now, in point number 1, I told you to educate yourself on how your insulin works. And this is the reason for that. When we come to testing our insulin rates and ratios, if you don't know how it fucking works, you're going to have a very challenging time. Yeah. So point number 3 is I test my basal rate. I've got so many free trainings on this. If you want it, just drop me a message saying basal and I'll send it to you. But I'm going to briefly run over the rules that we use for basal rate testing. First of all, you want your last meal at least 3 or 4 hours before you're going to start testing your basal rate. That meal, what you want the macros to be around is 5 grams of fat or under, so we don't get a prolonged spike and it fucks up the test. Yeah. Protein, I will go 5 to 10 grams to keep it on the safe side. And as for carbs, 20, 30, 40 grams. Some people, some of this relatively easy to bolus for. We like to use with our clients something like a chicken wrap. Dead easy, fits the macros. What I would then do is I'd make sure that was 4 hours before I wanted to start testing my basal rate. I would then obviously start with overnight testing, whether you're on pens or a pump, you're still starting with overnight. Excuse me. And all we're looking for really is that we go to bed in range and we wake up in range. If not, and you wake up high, chances are you're not giving enough basal insulin. If you wake up low or you drop low throughout the night, chances are you've got too much basal insulin. Excuse me, and you just make the adjustments. That's a base foundation. There's a bit more to it, but I've not got time to go over it in this. It'll be too long. Yeah. So that's point number 3. Quick one on testing my basal rate. Once I've got that dialed in, I'll then move on to point number 4, which is I test my insulin to carb ratio. Same sort of principles apply. I would probably use, and I have used the same meal. For me, it's like a chicken wrap. I know it's around 40 grams of carbs. And I always start with a 1 to 10. So that'll be 4 units. A lot of specialists will set type 1s on this. It's not going to be right for everyone. For some it works, some it doesn't. Yeah. So I'll test my insulin to carb ratio. Dead simple on this. Keep the same meal so that it's easier. Low fat, low protein, moderate carbs, whatever it is. I start with a 1 to 10. And all I want to be doing is being in range when I start, not spiking out of range, and then ending back in range after 3 or 4 hours. I know that my insulin to carb ratio is right then. If I spike out of range and then I come back in range after 3 or 4 hours, I need a pre-bolus. Yeah. Anything that happens in between, if I don't come back in range, I know I've not given enough. If I hypo anytime within the 3 or 4 hours, I know I've given too much insulin. Dead simple ways of testing these. That's it. Yeah. So that's point number 4. So far we've got first point, educate myself on how my insulin works and what type 1 diabetes actually is. Point number 2, I'd set some goals. I'll look at my current average blood glucose, my current HbA1c, my current time in target range. We've got access to that. We're very privileged now. We've got so much access to this data. I'll then set some goals and break it down for me to work towards. Point number 3 is I test my basal rate. Number 4, then test my insulin to carb ratio. Number 5 is a big one, and this should be run along testing your rates and ratios. And that would be, I would start to track my food using that like MyFitnessPal, Carbs and Calories, whatever the fuck that you want. The tool doesn't matter. It's what it's doing. Yeah. Just a vehicle to allow you to make sure that you're getting the right amount of macros in when you're running tests. It's also good for tracking calories as well if you're watching your weight. The aim of us tracking our food, and I say this to all of our clients, the aim of us tracking our food is so that one day we can eyeball a plate of food and be round about where we need to be to guess the macros and then to know how much insulin to give. It's a tool. It's a means to an end. That's it. Like, I've not tracked my food for over, I want to say about 4 years. I can look at the majority of foods and I could tell you the amount of carbs, fats, and proteins in them and probably be within 5 to 10 grams of like around that. Yeah. That skills only come from years and years of hard work and tracking my food and weighing as well. So if you want to get to that point, you need to be tracking your food. And that's point number 5. Yeah. It's also going to even out any variables when you're testing your rates and ratios. Point number 6 is I'd work out 3 to 5 times a week. Why? Because working out's fucking great, mate. Like, it makes you feel good. Exercise is fucking awesome for all humans, but specifically for us as type 1s because it makes us more insulin sensitive. It'll make us feel good physically and mentally. And it's probably going to make us look good naked as well. Who doesn't want to fucking look good naked? Yeah. But more to the point on this, when I say work out 3 to 5 times a week, I would create a mixture. I would definitely 100% recommend some strength training for those who can. Yeah. I strength train 3 times a week. I would recommend it. And this is weightlifting. Yeah. This is weightlifting. Yeah. I don't mean going to a gym. I don't mean fucking bodybuilding if you're female. You're not getting fucking hench like fucking a guy. No. You're just lifting some like weight, some resistance. And this got really popular, especially with females over the last few years. I think they're realizing that, hey, I'm not going to get like a fucking bodybuilder. Do you know what I mean? And it is good for me. So across the board, males and females, type 1s, like, make sure we're doing some sort of resistance training, weightlifting if we can. Yeah. I would advise 2 or 3 times a week on that. The others could be a walk, it could be a hike, it could be a run, it could be a jog, a bike ride, or whatever the fuck you enjoy, swimming. You need to find sort of activities that you enjoy. So you're going to be able to stick to that at the end of the day. Yeah. So I'm going to quickly go over these points again. You should have been taking notes. Remember, this is going to be uploaded everywhere, so you can always come back to this. These points will improve your blood sugar control. I still do these, and we teach this and really install this in all of our clients because they fucking work. They're very basic, and people are often looking for something sexy, something different, the next bit of tech, the things that means I don't have to do the fucking work. Come on, mate, give your fucking head a wobble. We all have to do the work. And the basics are always worth putting your time and energy into because they fucking work. So point number 1 is I'd educate myself on how insulin works and what type 1 diabetes actually is and what it's doing within my body. And point number 2 is I then look at my current level of control, HbA1c, 30-day average, 30-day time in target range. I'd then set some targets where I wanted those to be. Point number 3 is then I will start testing my basal insulin, just broken down a rough like breakdown of how we do that. Point number 4, once my basal insulin was sorted, I'd move on to testing my insulin to carb ratio. Number 5, I'd be doing straight from the off is I'd track my food. So eventually I can eat out at a restaurant, I can look at the food, and because I've tracked that much fucking rice or pasta or whatever it is, I know, hey, that's 150 grams, and I know how many grams of carbs are in it, also the rest of the meal, and I know how much insulin to give for that because I've put the fucking reps in and the time in. I can eyeball it. Yeah. Point number 6 is I work out 3 to 5 times a week, and I make sure that included resistance and strength training as well, and then whatever the fuck I enjoyed doing. Yeah. I use these points still now, and this enables me to keep my HbA1cs around 5.2%. I work in the old money. That's about 36 or 38 in the new money. My average is always in the high 6s, 6.8, 6.9. My timing target range is always around 72 to 75%, which I'm completely happy with because I enjoy life and I fucking love food as well. To be honest, we've got some clients that are much better controlled than me. Yeah. But just depends what you want. But I've told you the limits of where those sort of numbers, where we aim for and where I believe they should be. Yeah. They are the 6 points. Go and take these. Don't just listen to it and go, oh, yeah, that's a good point, and then not fucking do it because obviously you ain't going to get anywhere. You're going to stay not happy with your control. If you take these 6 points and you actually fucking apply them, I can guarantee your control will improve. And when it does, I want you to message me and say, cheers, Tom, mate. I really appreciate that. That podcast that you did on 6 things I'd do if I wanted to improve my blood sugar levels and diabetes control, I took the 6 points, I did it. Look at my numbers. So I can guarantee that will happen. Team, that is it. If you got value from this episode, please leave me a rating and a review. I said at the start on the podcast app. Yeah. And also give it a screenshot, share it on your socials, and make sure you give us a tag. Thank you very much for listening. Until the next episode, have a fucking great day. Peace. Right. if anyone's got any questions on Facebook and Instagram, I'm going to stay on for a minute and just give you guys a chance to ask any questions if you wish to do so. I'm going to have a flick through the comments now. See who jumped on. Cool. Right. So, guys watching on the live, thank you very much. Appreciate your eyes and ears. People have been watching this after because they always upload it, obviously, so people can come back if they missed the live. Make sure you give me a hashtag replay just so I know how many people watch it after the live as well. So, go and take those 6 points, go and apply them. And as I said on the end of the podcast, then, when you do apply them and you start to improve your control, you can reach out and you can say thanks to me. So I can guarantee that it'll work. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. Catch you in the next live. Have a great day.